And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. We are back again with another edition. I feel like I got to adjust the camera a little bit. I'm going to scoot back and show you. This is Shaping Success, but this is with Robert Watson. We're going through his book, Ars Victorious. I got my shirt on, but I got to move back a little bit because my camera is like, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get this mic back. You know, I need to get one of those boom arms so I can sit back more because I can't quite get in the right spot. But anyway, we're here and we're talking about it. The book is out. We've got the clothing's been out for a while, right? Like, I mean, I know you talked about sweatshirts and shirts and things like that, but where can I find the gear?
Yeah, it's on our site, rsvictorious.com. We've been, I guess, testing the clothing for about 6 months. So we've been beating the hell out of it, running in it, washing it every day, that kind of thing to make sure that it survives, right? And so we've abused this clothing well beyond, what most people would go through. But again, we want to know if, like this shirt's probably 3 months old, probably been washed 25 times, just because we're really trying to make sure the stuff works. So
Yeah,
we want ultimately soft and,
we had this conversation. I was in Arizona and I was getting ready to purchase one and I'm like texting you, hey, how does it fit? How's this? He's like, just give me a call because I'm a shirt snob and like the shirts, like different body types and we kind of have you're a lot slimmer than I am, I'm guessing, I'm thinking, but you got we're the big guys and the big guys
Yes.
have different ways of things. Everyone has different ways of fitting. Like, Nikki is here and I sent her a sweatshirt and, she's like, oh, I'm swimming in this thing. And it's like, yep, I'm sorry. I apologize because I've never even tried that one on. But knowing how they fit is kind of nice to know.
What size did you send Nikki? I'll have to send her something.
I can't remember. I got to ask her because I think, like with sweatshirts, the things with sweatshirts is like you always get a size bigger, right? Because people want to be a little bit baggy. And so I think she went that way. And I can't remember what size it was. I think we probably sent her large and she needed medium or, and a medium actually fit. So and I don't know what brand. I think I got Port Authority was the brand that I got. Oh, it's extra large. So we should have got her large.
A large?
Yep.
Okay. Nikki, DM me your address.
But Men of the House podcast in the house as well. I was on his podcast this weekend too. I got to actually do a little interview myself, which was kind of cool because it's always fun to be on the other end of the interview. This
Microphone?
I don't feel like this is you and I is just a conversation between friends. I don't feel like this is really an interview, but like when you have to set up and do research about someone every single time, like the first time we interviewed, it was a little different than now, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I've not as tortured by the lights and stuff that you just have to get used to, right?
Yep, exactly.
And also staring at yourself, which is not my idea of,
Yeah, I'm still getting used to having the camera in a different spot, and but like those are things that you learn over time. You guys can go back and check out. This is number 12 with Robert and I going through the book because this is Maxim 12, which is a pretty good topic. It's called authenticity. I like what it says right there. We must never trade authenticity for approval because I think that's what we're always trying to do is look for everyone else's approval when the only approval that we really need is our own.
Absolutely. And this, I normally wouldn't bring Hollywood into one of my scenes, but it was really, really appropriate. Kevin Costner and For Love of the Game, because he pitches a perfect game, which is just unheard of. Forget that it's a no-no. It's a perfect game. And he realizes that the biggest thing we're looking for in life are people to celebrate our victories with. And in the movie, he pitches a perfect game and goes home to a hotel room alone, with basically no one to celebrate with, and not anyone that he truly loves as a partner. And so it really kind of hits home about the masks we all wear, right? Yep. They used to say that for every person, every friend you had, there's a version of you that they see.
Right.
Right. Based upon your mask. And I get that. But the reality is in some cases we don't show up the same for everybody, and we lose authenticity that way. And so I think one of the things about getting older, and I guess I'm a few years older than you, Wes,
A little bit.
um, just a little bit, is you try to be authentic, and some of the responses you get are startling. Especially, I'm in college, right? And the average student that I'm in there with is 24, 25. And so they just see the world completely different, right? And
No.
they're all on edge about their future and what everything will look like. And I'm on the other side of the equation, right? I've
Yep.
been there, done that, got the t-shirt literally. And and so, I'm trying to do a 2.0, and they're trying to figure out what 1.0 looks like. So it's very tough for them, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
I think about that every single day about like where we were at. Like I was talking to a student yesterday. So you guys can't see it, but I coach baseball and I have a couple pictures up here. And I was talking to one of my students yesterday about you just kind of know with these kids, right? Like you kind of get these, and I say, I feel like an old man because I'm saying that, and I'm not really, I am an old man apparently. Um, but you just kind of know, like I kind of had this feeling about, I had, 12, 13 kids on my team, and you can kind of see where the ones are going to go and where the other ones are going to, where you think they're going to go. And we were talking about that. Like you have all the choices in the world. Like you have the opportunity to change that, to make that, to be whatever you want. But you also have the opportunity to go down the other path as well. And there's a couple kids that I coach that have gone down a rough path, right? And then there's the other ones who
Mhm.
work their butt off. But like a lot of times they will be a different person in front of you than they would be, you know, to their friends. And so those are those things that we all deal with. And you see how that affects people, right? Like you're walking into a classroom and you see this, you observe that, and like these kids are putting on, you talked about a little bit like putting on makeup, putting on a face. I think about like filters on social media. Like we put, this is not who I am. I'm trying to, and the same thing with like, we've even talked about these dating apps, which I've never been on, but they put their best picture forward. They don't put who they really are on a daily basis. And that it's not a good way to start off.
Well, and you bring that up because that comes into the chapter, and actually, this is one of the issues that I talk to a lot of my women friends about. Is they say that you really don't even know who you're dating for 90 to 120 days because who they send is their representative. They don't send themselves, right? It's like their PR team comes out on the first dates. In about 90 to 120 days, they let their guard down enough to know who they are. And at that point, you actually know who you're dating.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it's just all conversation. It's all, just fluff. And that's sad that number one, that's the approach we all use. But number two, that we feel like we can't be authentic
Right.
enough and can't say, this is who I am. Can you imagine the people who are in the public eye, right?
Right.
Who there's an entire self constructed out there in the world that may or may not be true, right? Do they live up to the self that's presented to the public or the outside world, or do they be who they are? Well, in their case, their constructed image pays them money,
Right.
right? So they can't actually back off of their constructed image. They try to be. So it's very odd, all the personas we do, and that's one of the points in the book is persona, right? The mask, as Carl Jung says it, that thing that we project to the outside world versus living kind of to that. This is just kind of who I am.
It's
You're
funny
not going to
because
get any difference.
as I was reading through that, I mean, this is going to be a real crude example, and I know that it's going to make Nikki laugh, and maybe you'll laugh about it. But like, you think about like all the things that you do in a relationship, and like the first time you cut one in front of your significant other, it's like kind of that's like when the authenticity comes out, right? Like that's the real test of time.
Yep.
I feel like.
Yeah, there's a few. It was a good girlfriend was telling me, and I asked her, "You don't snore, do you?" I mean, we're not. That's not what's going on between us. But she said, "Well, I don't snore, but I breathe out of my mouth." And I
Yeah.
said, "And?" She said, "Well, it makes kind of a cute sound, I guess, initially, and then I guess probably over time it might tick you off or bother you. And I was like, wow, she's so self-conscious about, she's not snoring. She's just breathing out of her mouth. Wow. Talk about critical of yourself.
Well, how does she even
Jesus,
know
man.
that? Like, I mean, someone
Because she's
had
been
to have
told.
told her that, right?
They did.
Yeah.
They did. Well, that's
It's
the old running joke about, the 10 years into your marriage, right? The only thing that really bothers me with Wes, your wife says, is the breathing. It's
right,
in and out and in. It's that idea that he's alive. That's
right.
what bothers me. Everything about the man.
Please die.
Please.
What's up, Jenny? Oh, we got 3 people in the chat room. We probably have more than that. Well, it says only 1 up there, but I know that there's 3 people in here. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. We're talking about being your authentic self. Authenticity is the chapter. The book is out now. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. It's like, there's all these things. I hopped on a TikTok live last night. Nikki was actually in it, and a couple of our friends were talking about like dating. Like, there's these non-negotiable things that you have before, and if you can get past that and realize that if those non-negotiables are not there, you can deal with the other stuff, right? But you have to be willing to get past those non-negotiables. And I don't know. I'm an observer, and I'm sure, and I know you are. I'm not sure you are. I know you are, like, because that was part of your job, was like observing things and seeing what happens, like every single day.
Right.
But there's just so many things that go on, and you're just kind of wondering, well, who told you look good in that? Who told you to look bad in that? Who told you, and we base our persona on everything else that the world wants instead of what we really are. And you get kind of into the political situation with this, and it's almost like back in the 80s, I feel like you could talk about it. Like, obviously I was born in the 80s. I was born in 1980, and I'm sitting there thinking of conversations that my grandparents had about like Reagan being president, and then, after that, and like what was going on and everything, and how they could talk to they were Democrats at the time. Now everyone's a liberal, like there's all these different things, these personas that you can't even say those things. Like, you can't talk about those because it's almost like the same thing with the American flag. If you are proud of your country, you are a MAGA Trumper. Like, it has nothing to do with anything else other than the flag, because now that's what they associate it with. And if you start talking about that, now you get seen in a different light, and you can't be your authentic self, because if you are, you offend someone, or you're going to get attacked for it.
Yeah, and just to contextualize, my first commander-in-chief, my first boss was Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter.
To put that into context, time-wise. And, he is one of those guys that probably took more heat than he deserved. He did a lot of good things. They came in the back 2 years of his administration that were carryovers to the Reagan administration, that the Reagan administration liked and carried on. So again, some of the times people get a bad rap, but conversation more direct. We were talking about what it was like to go through a security background investigation in my day versus what it is now, right? A background investigation in my day was, not to offend the world, but this is the truth, was, are you a communist or are you gay?
Yeah.
That was it. If you're not a communist and you're not gay, you're a loyal American. You just roll your eyes and go, okay. Well, that's all they cared about, right?
Yeah.
That's what they cared about, so that's what it was. Now it's much more nuanced. It's much more odd, and it's different. People are much more suspects. It's like I was in a fraternity in college, right?
Yeah.
So I went up. This is probably a decade ago. I went and talked to the fraternity house. I was introducing my sons to it and all that kind of stuff, and neither one of them pledged. But we were talking about all the times in the fraternity house, and they said, "Oh my God, you guys were epic." I was like, oh, really? Why? He said, well, you did all these things. We hear about the stories. I said, well, about half of them are true. And I said, well, that's the same way now. He goes, oh, no. He said, we have cell phones. We could never get away with the things you got away with.
Right.
Because it'd be recorded. Right? So you talk about inauthentic. Now everybody has to worry about their worst sins are on camera.
Right.
Right? You have a little bit too much to drink at a party. You're sitting in the corner, you slump over, somebody takes a selfie of you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, talk about being guarded and protected. Oof. Man,
Well, you think
that's
about it,
tough.
like some of these people that are, I mean, Twitter's been around, Twitter X is called X now,
Yes.
has been around for
Mhm.
such a long time. And there's people that have taken heat, like, was it Kevin Hart, got kicked off of whatever. I think do you talk about that in the book? I can't remember. But Kevin Hart gets kicked out of hosting whatever it was, the Oscars or whatever that it was, because he had said something 15 years ago about
Right.
something that they dug up.
Right.
And it's like, are you kidding me? No, I'm not going to apologize for that because there's so many things that happen. It's like, you said, are you communist or gay? Well, what is that now? How is that defined now? There's like 15, 16 different ways to say that. And now all of a sudden you're going to be chastised for something that you said 15 years ago that wasn't offensive then or was, but now we've brought it to the forefront and it's a big thing. And that can be with anything. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's generational too. I was sitting in a classroom on American Grand Strategy, and this team was putting together the grand strategy, and their solution to the Taiwan situation was to give Taiwan second strike nuclear capability. And of course, me being at the point where nuclear weapons reached 78,000 nuclear warheads during my time, right before we de-escalated a little bit, I'm just kind of looking at them in horror, like, you want to actually give someone that doesn't have a nuclear program second strike capability. It's called survivable, means you can survive the first strike and counter strike. I said, you want to give that to somebody? And they went, yeah. I went, okay. My generation would have been horrified at the notion that you wanted to proliferate nuclear weapons.
Right.
Right. But this generation was like, well, that's the only way to make it safe. I'm like, I don't think that's safe, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have to really, and that's the hard part is like we're told how to think now. Like we don't think for ourselves. And you think about like giving money to other countries, like, oh, we need to give this country other money. How come my gas is so high? How come my taxes are so high? How come, like, it's like you're paying for that. Where do you think that money goes when you do that?
How about the bridge that fell down?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, can we, they've been talking about infrastructure, right? We've been listening to this for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
The infrastructure in America is 50, 60, 70 years old, right? The Eisenhower administration. And everybody's like, well, it can be put off. It can be put off. It can be put off. Well, can it? When you spend $2 trillion fighting a war in Afghanistan and Iraq, $2 trillion, that's a T, right?
Yep.
And you have bridges falling down. Do you think you have your priorities a little screwed up?
Yeah, it's
mean,
crazy.
I'm just asking.
You just have to look past all the crap. I mean, that's all there is to it. But it's one of those things that we have to like the chapter talks about. Like we feel like we have to hide that because if we don't, then whatever we do will be judged for.
Right. We can't defend our teachers, for example, because right now my understanding is that teachers are under siege, right? Not only for pay, but for the situations and circumstances of their employment, the schools they're in, all that kind of stuff. And, again, are we defending that? Or are we paying baseball players $500 million? I mean, this is, where are we?
That baseball thing is going to drive me insane. I will tell you that right now. And I know this is kind of off topic, but we're paying that guy,
Right.
like the Dodgers are paying that guy. And we have a situation that happened years ago where they banned Pete Rose for gambling. And if this situation had happened right now, that's happening right now, had happened then, he would be in the same boat as Pete Rose. But right now, because he's bigger than the game, like he's the face of the game, it's all about money. They're going to not investigate it or do anything about it because he's worth that much. So that's insanity.
And that's back to the authenticity issue and the masks that we're forced to wear where we can't speak out about things that just don't make any sense. And we don't have to be caustic. We don't have to be mean. We don't have to be confrontational. We don't even have to be disagreeable, but we can disagree. This is what's missing in the public forum is debate. Realistically, we can just debate and we can agree to disagree sometimes. And that's okay too. What did Pete Rose say?
Yeah, we need to hear what Pete Rose said, Nikki. I'm sure I heard it already because I've seen so many things. I have to tell you, I watched this podcast. I missed it last night. I was so upset because after it was over, because my favorite baseball player is Will Clark, and he does this podcast show with kind of like this with Eric Burns, who played for the Diamondbacks and the A's and a couple other teams, and it's called Deuces Wild because they're both number 22. And Will Clark does not hold anything back, and that's what I love about him. And he was talking about that whole situation. He's like, if it looks like a fish and it smells like a fish, it's probably a fish. He was talking about that. It's like, we see it, but we don't want to say anything, you know? And that's the hard part. It's like, you have to be willing to go against the grain, because if they say it enough, or if they tell you that it's true, it's going to happen, or it is true. You know, like, that's kind of the way we take it. Like, people who get their news from like Facebook, or believe that Fox News is right and CNN is wrong, or vice versa, or whatever. It's like, it's always in the middle. It's always somewhere in there, you know?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I did some research probably 2 years ago on how, for example, the media treated China, right? Whether you like China or don't like China, the media was extremely biased. It wasn't wasn't being fair on either side to China. It was funny that everybody all got on the same side after Russia invaded Ukraine and China wouldn't side against them. Then the entire public shifted, right? But the whole point was, this is once again, who's framing the debate?
Yep.
What are we trying to do? Are we trying to get into conflict with the country? Why? Based upon what? What did they actually do? These are the things that we begin to ask. I mean, come on, we got to be able to ask simple questions, right?
Yeah.
Simple questions like, things like how intrusive should we be into people's lives? For example, celebrities. How intrusive should we be into their lives? Should we just let them be human beings or people? And we don't. Oftentimes we feel like we have the need to know stuff that is absolutely none of our business.
Right.
Yeah. Makes the public arena very tough.
Yeah. And it's again, like, back to the minor thing of like dating, just like you were talking about. It's like, you're afraid of what they're going to think. You don't want to, you do the things that you think the other person wants to see. You don't do the things that you want to do because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. And I don't know. I think that I have to, my very short dating span that I had went away. Like, I finally came to the realization that once I was accepting of who that significant other person was and who I am, and I'm okay and I'm comfortable with them and they're comfortable with me, the way that I am, instead of trying to put that mask on like you're talking about, that's when, I met my wife. Until then, it was like, well, I don't like this, I don't like that, this person does this person does that. And then you're finding out who they really are, who they hide it. Like you said, you hide it for a couple months, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's the real person, and you're finding out who they are. And that wasn't the person I want to be with. And now I found him, and I've been with him for 24 years. But you can't do that anymore, because these are the ways that you have to find it. You're not going to find the person that you're looking for on this stupid dating app that's just showing the very best picture of them, or
right. In an app that's actually designed just to create interaction, not longevity.
Yep.
That's one of the challenges we all face, is you got to remember the business model. The business model isn't actually there to help you.
Yeah.
The business model is to help them.
And
so you always have to be careful that your goals and your agendas align. And that's the same thing when you're out on a date. Remember, you both, if in truth you do have the same agenda, right? For example, if the guy's agenda is to get the woman into bed and the woman's agenda is to find a long-term mate, you understand both are going to be deceptive.
Yep.
Right? Now, if your agenda is both the same thing and you're realistic and you say, hey, listen, we want a long-term relationship, well, then I suggest you take your guard down.
Yeah.
Right? I suggest you just go ahead and get to know each other and try not to waste each other's time. Because, some of my friends that have been dating go through these like 6 months intervals, right? They will go in, they will date somebody 3 or 4 months, break up, rest for 2 months, and go back out and do it again. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exhausting.
Yeah.
All right.
It's crazy. Nikki said that Pete Rose said he wished that he had an interpreter. He'd be off scot-free. This is the thing. It's like there's two, and that was what Will and Eric Burns were talking about. Like, there was 2 stories that came out. One was I didn't know, and one was he embezzled money from me. And it's like, or I did know. And it's like, okay, which one is it? And now there's something really fishy about this, and whatever. We're in a different time. We're not going to be fair about it, I'm sure, but it's okay. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, there's nothing that I would like more than to see the Dodgers lose this guy that the Giants lost out on that didn't get, because, but whatever.
But you're at least announcing your bias to the world, right?
There is a bias.
I am absolutely not impartial.
No.
I have. If y'all couldn't field the team, it wouldn't break my heart. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be all right. I'll be all right if something happens to you guys. I mean, the thing is like there's no historically they're gonna choke anyway, so it's all right. We're fine.
Oh. Are you giving them the old Cubs curse?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's funny because the last time that they won a World Series was the COVID year when it wasn't even 162 games or whatever. It's like, is it really a World Series?
That's it. It gets an asterisk, right?
Yeah, that gets an asterisk, just like Barry Bonds. Oh, he used steroids. It's like,
Yeah.
whatever.
The other guy used antihistamines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, if you face the major league pitcher, and I actually have, is if you think that the steroids are going to help you, they might help you hit the ball harder, but they ain't going to help you hit the ball.
No.
Trust me when I say this.
That's the thing. It's like you take away. So even if you take away, say, like, go through and look at all of Barry Bonds' home runs and you take off like 20 feet from each one of them, and if they didn't go out and you took away the home runs that he had that didn't go 20 feet further, he still could hit the shit out of the ball. He still was good. He's still a Hall of Famer, and we're going to keep him out. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess that, there's got to be lines, and I guess they've arbitrarily drawn that one. So
yeah.
There you go.
Yep. Obviously, they can't draw the line on gambling, though. With that, it's a great chapter. We got off top. Hey, we were talking about sports again. Is that weird?
No, not at all.
Oh. The book is out now. You guys need to go check it out. You can find it on Amazon. Ars Victorious, Art of Victor. Very good book. We're going through it. We're almost through. That was Maxim 12, I think. We got one more Maxim, and then we're going to get into the what do you call them? Something different. I'm trying to think. The what do you call them?
Yeah. What have I called them? That's a good question. I had to look. What did I call them?
Not the. Oh, I can't remember. Never mind. Anyway, like the chapters. We're going to get through the essays. There we go. That's what it is.
Essays.
I'm thinking of school because I had to write lots of essays.
That's it.
Yeah. It's great. I'm excited. We're getting close to like halfway through the book too. I mean, it's not really a long book. Nikki actually has got to check it out. She says she's going to start it this weekend. You can go get your shirts and stuff like that, all that gear at arsvictorious.com.
arsvictorious.com. And Nikki, I'll take care of your sweatshirt.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We will see you next Wednesday. We're going through. Now I scrolled too far. Where are we at? Next week will be the media, which we've touched on a little bit. So thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Yep.